The cold was sharper than she remembered. It sliced through the thin fabric of her grey hoodie as she sat on the concrete sidewalk, her little girl curled into her lap clutching a worn-out teddy bear. Cars rushed past, indifferent, the noise of the city swallowing her quiet sighs. Her fingers were numb, her face pale, and the reflection in the glass window beside her looked like someone she no longer knew. A woman stripped of pride, reduced to survival. And when her daughter lifted her big blue eyes and whispered, "Mama, can we sleep here tonight?" a tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. If you believe that kindness still exists in this world, that people deserve second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep spreading stories of hope, compassion, and humanity. Her name was Rachel Porter, and 3 months ago, she had a life that looked normal on the surface. She worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic in Cincinnati, Ohio, juggling her job and motherhood after her husband walked out 2 years earlier. Life was hard but manageable, until the clinic closed suddenly due to bankruptcy. Overnight, Rachel lost her job, her income, and her balance. The rent piled up, the bills never stopped, and the promises of next week from the landlord turned into a formal eviction notice. She had no family to call, no savings to fall back on. Within weeks, Rachel found herself standing on the street with a backpack, a blanket, and her 4-year-old daughter, Ellie. She tried everything, sleeping at shelters that were too full, asking for temporary work, even spending nights at 24-hour diners where she could buy one coffee and stay warm till dawn. Every morning she woke up with aching bones and a heavier heart. Yet every time Ellie smiled, clutching her teddy and saying, "It's okay, Mama," Rachel forced herself to keep moving. That day was especially cold. November winds bit at their faces as Rachel sat outside a cafe, her eyes scanning the people passing by. Most avoided her gaze. Some glanced at her and quickly looked away. She wasn't begging loudly, just sitting there quietly, hoping someone would notice, maybe offer a meal, maybe a word. But in the city, everyone seemed to have their own storms. Then came the man in the dark overcoat. His name was Michael Lawson, a corporate attorney known for his precision and success. He walked with a briefcase in hand, his mind on a high-stakes meeting and a life far removed from the pavement Rachel sat on. When he first saw her and the little girl, something flickered in his chest. Perhaps discomfort, perhaps compassion, but he quickly pushed it aside. He had deadlines, responsibilities, and no time to get involved. He lowered his eyes and walked past them, but as he reached the corner, something made him stop. Maybe it was Ellie's voice, soft and trembling in the cold, asking again, "Mama, can we sleep here tonight?" Maybe it was the reflection of his own daughter, the one he barely saw since his divorce, the one he missed tucking in at night. He stood there for a long second, torn between the world he knew and the one in front of him. Then he turned back. Rachel didn't notice him until he spoke. His voice was hesitant but gentle. "Excuse me, are you two okay?" The words hit her like a wave. No one had asked her that in weeks. She looked up, unsure if she should answer. "We're fine," she said automatically, though her trembling hands told a different story. Michael hesitated, then crouched down, trying to meet Ellie's eyes. "Hi there," he said softly. "That's a nice teddy you have." Ellie nodded shyly and clutched it tighter. Michael stood up again and took a slow breath. He didn't know what to do. He wasn't the kind of man who stopped for strangers. But something about the quiet strength in Rachel's face and the innocence in Ellie's eyes wouldn't let him walk away this time. He offered to buy them something warm to eat. Rachel resisted at first, her pride still clinging to the fragments of who she used to be, but hunger and exhaustion finally won. Inside the cafe, a steam rose from cups of hot chocolate, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Rachel felt human again for the first time in weeks. She watched Ellie eat eagerly, crumbs on her cheeks, and fought the lump in her throat. Michael asked a few gentle questions, how long they'd been out, where they were staying, and Rachel answered honestly, her voice low and steady. When they finished, Michael walked them to a small motel nearby and paid for a room for 2 nights. Rachel was too overwhelmed to speak. She tried to refuse, but he simply said, "Just a couple of nights to get some rest. That's all." She thanked him quietly, tears in her eyes. As he turned to leave, Ellie ran after him and said, "Thank you, mister." He smiled, but his throat tightened as he walked away. That night, Rachel lay on the motel bed, watching Ellie sleep peacefully for the first time in days. She whispered a prayer, not knowing if anyone was listening, but grateful nonetheless. The warmth of that small room felt like a miracle. The next morning, Michael couldn't shake the image of them from his mind. While he argued legal cases and drafted contracts, his thoughts drifted back to the little girl in the pink jacket. He decided to check in on them again after work. When he arrived, Rachel was sitting by the motel's vending machine, looking thoughtful. She smiled when she saw him. He offered her breakfast, and a conversation turned into something deeper, a connection between 2 lives that shouldn't have crossed, but somehow did. Over the next few days, Michael helped her find local resources, a women's shelter, job listings, childcare programs. He used his contacts quietly, making calls, asking favors. Rachel found part-time work cleaning offices, and though it wasn't much, it was a start. As weeks passed, she moved from the motel to a small rented room, and Ellie began attending a nearby daycare. Michael visited sometimes, always bringing something small, a bag of groceries, a children's book, or just time to listen. He never made her feel like a charity case. Instead, he treated her with dignity, reminding her she still mattered. One evening, as winter deepened, Rachel invited him in for coffee. The room was tiny, barely furnished, but warm. Ellie was drawing on the floor, humming to herself. Rachel looked at Michael and said, "I don't know why you helped us. You didn't have to." He smiled faintly and said, "Maybe I needed a reminder of what really matters." What he didn't tell her was that he had been living his own quiet emptiness. His wife had left years ago, taking their daughter to another state. Work had filled the silence, but the loneliness lingered. Helping Rachel and Ellie gave him something he hadn't felt in a long time: purpose. Months passed. Rachel worked hard, saving every dollar she could. Slowly, she rebuilt her life. Michael's visits became more frequent, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to be there. Ellie adored him, calling him Mr. Mike and always showing him her newest drawings. Then came a day when Rachel got a call from a clinic she'd applied to months earlier. They needed a receptionist immediately. It wasn't just a job, it was a new beginning. When she told Michael, his eyes lit up with genuine joy. "See? You did this," he said. But Rachel shook her head. "No," she replied softly, "we did this." As spring arrived, life began to bloom again for them. Rachel found a small apartment with 2 bedrooms and a patch of sunlight that Ellie called her Teddy Corner. They invited Michael over for dinner to celebrate. It was simple: pasta, laughter, and a quiet sense of belonging that none of them had expected. That night, as Rachel watched Michael and Ellie play with building blocks on the floor, something inside her healed. She realized that sometimes life doesn't give us what we want, but it gives us who we need. Months turned into a year. Rachel was thriving in her job, Ellie was starting kindergarten, and Michael had become part of their lives in a way that felt natural, even inevitable. He still worked long hours, but he made time, something he had once thought impossible. One afternoon, after picking Ellie up from school, Rachel passed by the same cafe where it had all begun. The glass window reflected a different woman now, stronger, calmer, and smiling. She remembered that night on the sidewalk, the hopelessness, the cold, and the moment a stranger turned back. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's remind the world that one small act of kindness can change a life forever. Before you go, take a second to comment below. I believe kindness can change lives, because sometimes all it takes is one person turning back.